Welcome to Shatter.
Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories. You always remember the moment the switch flips. Not when it cracks, not when it bleeds, but when it freezes. We were at her friend's birthday dinner, some rooftop place downtown, all string lights and overpriced cocktails. She was already on her second glass of wine, laughing louder than usual, leaning in toward the guy across the table. His name was Brian, new guy at her firm. Slick smile. Rolex tan. The kind of man who talks to another man's wife without blinking. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. Because the real blow came later. We were standing in the parking garage, alone. I offered to drive, her heels were high, and the air was cold. She waved me off. You don't have to play gentleman all the time, Nathan. It's exhausting. I raised an eyebrow, half laughing. Sorry for trying to be decent. And then she said it. You're just convenient. Not exciting. 6 words. No emotion. Just pure clinical precision. She said it like she was confirming a dinner reservation. I didn't answer. Just opened the passenger door, waited. She got in. Didn't thank me. The drive home was silent. Not tense, dead. I replayed it in my mind on loop. Convenient. Like I was a coffee maker. A trash bin. A placeholder for something more thrilling. I didn't argue. Didn't ask what she meant. Because I already knew. That night, while she slept diagonally across the bed, breathing soft and careless, I lay awake. Something in me stopped. Not broke, stopped. The gears locked. I stared at the ceiling for hours. I didn't plan revenge. Didn't imagine another woman. I just recalibrated. That was the night I stopped being the man who explained himself. That was the night I went quiet. And the silence? It felt clean. The next morning, she was singing to herself in the kitchen. A casual melody like the night before hadn't happened. Like she hadn't just called me convenient and sliced something open inside me with a smile. She poured 1 cup of coffee. Hers. We used to drink 2. Always 2. Side by side, even when we fought. That morning, she took a sip and leaned against the counter, scrolling her phone. The dog waited by his bowl. She didn't notice him. She didn't notice me. That told me everything. At work, I went through the day on autopilot. No one noticed. I smiled when I needed to, nodded through meetings, even cracked a joke. But my mind was elsewhere. On her words. On the tone. The precision. Not a slip of emotion. Just delivery. That evening, her phone lit up while she was in the shower. I wasn't snooping. It was face up on the coffee table. A message preview blinked on screen. Tell him yet. From someone named S. I didn't open it. Didn't need to. The weight behind those 3 words did enough damage. She came out in a towel, walked past me like I was a roommate, not a husband. I didn't speak. I was listening, watching, documenting. That's when the journaling began. Quietly. Not dramatic. Just notes. Observations. What she wore when she left the house. How long she stayed gone. How her scent changed from soft florals to something sharper. Muskio. Not hers. Friday came, and she went out. Work thing, she said, grabbing her keys. I nodded. Didn't ask who was going. Didn't ask when she'd be back. That silence caught her off guard. I saw it in her eyes, confusion. Maybe even disappointment. She came home at 2:13 a.m. Her heels in her hand. Lipstick faded. She smelled like cologne I didn't recognize. She walked in and laughed. You look like a ghost. I wanted to ask where she'd been. Wanted to demand answers. But instead, I said, you hungry? She blinked like I'd spoken in another language. No, she said, walking past me. She'd already deleted me. I was just catching up. But here's the thing about ghosts. They watch everything. And they remember. A week drifted by in silence. Not awkward silence, strategic. Measured. I was still there, physically. Eating dinner. Watching the news. Sleeping in the same bed. But I had already left the room, the connection, the role. And she didn't see it. She thought the quiet meant surrender. That she had won. But it was something else entirely. People underestimate silence. They think it's absence. It's not. It's a container. It holds everything that hasn't been said, everything waiting for the right moment to matter. And I was filling that silence with proof. She left her laptop open one morning, just long enough. I wasn't searching. I didn't need to. The messages blinked like warnings. A man named Ryan. Another saved under just a first initial. And they weren't talking about work. One email said, next time I won't stop you. Another, you still taste like Friday. I didn't scroll further. I didn't take screenshots. I didn't even flinch. Because that wasn't the moment I needed. It came 2 days later. She said she was meeting coworkers after hours. I nodded. No questions. No tone. Just nodded. She wore her red dress, the one from our first anniversary. Tight. Low cut. She didn't meet my eyes when she grabbed her keys. Just said, "Don't wait up." I didn't. Instead, I opened our joint account. Transferred half the balance into a private account in my name only. I wasn't being petty. I was being practical. She wanted a trial separation. I was simply formalizing it, financially. An hour later, I checked her friend's social media. And there she was. Not hiding. Not subtle. The same red dress. Rooftop bar. Same skyline. Same laugh. And beside her, a man with a trimmed beard and a hand too low on her back to be professional. She looked radiant. She looked like a woman who thought she'd gotten away with something. And I realized I didn't feel betrayal anymore. I felt release. I finally had the truth I needed to begin the real work. Not of confrontation, but of extraction. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to cry. I was going to remove myself so quietly that by the time she noticed, it would be too late. Because when a man stops asking questions, it doesn't mean he trusts you. It means he's preparing to never speak your name again. Disappearing doesn't mean running. It means recalibrating. Rewriting your presence so subtly that it feels like you were never there. That was the strategy. I didn't slam the door. I just stopped opening it. I didn't argue. I withdrew. Quietly. Like dust settling after a collapse. I started waking up earlier than her. Leaving before sunrise. My routine was efficient shower, black coffee, gym. The kind of life you return to when you stop accommodating someone else's comfort. No notes left. No breakfast made. Just silence and the sound of the front door closing. At work, I added overtime. I volunteered for the late meetings. At home, I skipped the rituals. No dinner at the table. No checking in. I walked in, nodded if she was there, and went straight to the bedroom or office. She noticed, but she said nothing. Then I began closing access points. The shared savings account split and locked. The cloud storage cleaned and copied to a private drive. I changed the garage code. Moved the important documents from the cabinet to my office drawer. She wouldn't realize it at once. But when she needed something, the wall would be there. She texted me the first time it hit. "Hey, my debit card just declined?" No punctuation, no warmth. I stared at the message. Let it sit unread for an hour. Then answered, "I'll check later." I didn't. That evening, she asked again. Her voice casual. Like we were still partners. "Any update on the card?" I said, didn't get to it. Nothing more. No explanation. I walked to the kitchen. Opened a beer. Sat on the balcony in silence. She stood in the doorway for a second. Then turned back to her phone. 2 days later, she got locked out. I had gone hiking upstate. My phone was off. When I turned it back on for missed calls. A few texts. One said, "Seriously." I didn't reply. I came back late Sunday. She was already in bed. Lights off. She didn't speak when I walked in, but I heard her breathing change when I undressed. A longer inhale. Tense. She wasn't asleep. She was waiting for something. I climbed into bed. Turned my back to her. That was the night she understood this wasn't temporary. I wasn't playing distant. I was removing myself. Not out of anger. Out of precision. There's always a weak link. Always someone who knows too much, talks too much, or posts without thinking. And in her case, it was Megan, her best friend. The one who thought she was subtle but always overexplained. I didn't go looking. Megan gave me everything by accident. She tagged my wife in a group photo. Just 6 women, smiling at some lake house, holding drinks, wrapped in oversized sweaters. But Megan captioned it, "Recharge Weekend. Thanks for hosting, Aiden." Aiden. That wasn't a girl's name. And when I clicked on his profile, open, public, I found more than I expected. A post from the same weekend. A fire pit, 2 wine glasses, and a comment under the photo from my wife. Just a heart. Simple, but intentional. She wanted to be seen by him, and only him. And she forgot the world could still see her too. That was the confirmation I didn't need, but got anyway. And it meant I could move to the next phase. I scheduled a meeting with my lawyer. Not to file yet. Just to prepare. I updated my will. Rewrote my emergency contacts. Transferred the title of my car to my name only. Every change was invisible unless you were looking closely. At home, I became untouchable. She tried to reconnect one evening. I was reading in bed when she sat beside me. Too close. like proximity could erase distance. She asked if I wanted to have dinner out that weekend. Her voice was softer than usual. A test. A signal. I looked at her and said, I already have plans. The sentence landed like a slap. She asked with who. I didn't answer. Just turned the page. The power shift was happening now, and she could feel it. A few days later, she checked the shared calendar we used to plan everything, vacations, appointments, even grocery runs. She saw nothing there. Blank. Like our life together had simply stopped existing. That absence was deliberate. She asked me if something was wrong. I smiled. Why would anything be wrong? That smile shook her more than any argument ever could. She was expecting emotion. I gave her indifference. The strategy was working, because I wasn't just walking away. I was letting her watch me disappear, inch by inch, until all that remained was a man she used to know, now completely out of reach. It started with silence. Then came the whispering. Not mine, hers. The same people who used to flood our weekends with barbecues and birthday invites began pulling away. Not because of me, because of what they saw, because of what she let slip through curated posts and late-night texts that weren't as private as she thought. One of her old college friends, Tyler, messaged me out of the blue. Didn't expect to see Aiden with her. That's rough. No context, no elaboration, but enough to know people were connecting the dots faster than she could delete them. I didn't respond. I didn't have to. Reputation takes years to build, but it only takes a few careless pictures to erode. She had walked into her affair like it was an open secret. And now the people she thought were safe, the brunch group, the yoga class, the coworkers who used to light up at her arrival, began turning cold. The real shift came at her sister's baby shower. I didn't go. I wasn't invited. But her absence was louder than mine. Her sister called me afterward. I don't know what she's doing, but she's not herself. Just thought you should know. I told her, kindly, that I appreciated the call. That was all. I didn't try to explain. Let them speculate. Let them wonder what changed, what went wrong, who did what. The more questions they asked, the more the cracks in her performance began to show. That Sunday, she came home tense, quiet, dropped her purse harder than usual, didn't speak during dinner. I didn't ask what was wrong. I just watched. She was starting to understand. This wasn't just a failing marriage. This was a controlled demolition. Her status, her story, her illusion of control, it was unraveling in front of her, and I hadn't raised my voice once. She started texting me during the day. Little things. Need anything from the store? Want to do dinner Friday? I answered minimally. No thanks. Already have plans. Every message a reminder. I wasn't reachable anymore. Then she asked the question I had been waiting for. Are we okay? I didn't reply. Not because I didn't care, but because the weight of silence now spoke louder than any lie she could tell. And that silence? It was finally starting to echo. She had built her life like a stage, every detail carefully arranged, every gesture calculated to appear effortless. But when the applause stopped, when the audience began to leave, she didn't know what to do with the silence. And the silence was growing. She started staying home more. No more last-minute drinks with friends. No more late-night texts from Aiden lighting up her phone. He had gone quiet too, it seemed. Maybe he saw the shift. Maybe he never planned on staying. Either way, she was alone now, and it was beginning to show. I watched it unfold the way you watch a candle flicker at the end. Flickering faster, pulling in all the oxygen around it, hoping something will reignite the flame. But nothing caught. I made no moves. No accusations. Just let the natural collapse continue. Her parents stopped calling. Her sister became distant. The group chats went quiet. I knew because she started bringing up their silence during dinner. Not to me, just out loud. Wondering why no one was responding. Why plans were suddenly rescheduled without her. I didn't answer. I let her wonder. The only consistent thing she had left was me, and I had already exited the stage. She started asking about my schedule. Not because she cared, but because she was trying to anchor herself to whatever presence I had left. I gave short answers. Busy. Not sure yet. We'll see. My calendar remained blank, at least where she could see it. That week, I changed the locks. Not because I feared her, but because clarity demands boundaries. She noticed when her old key didn't work. I was home. She knocked. I opened the door. Didn't explain. Just stepped aside and let her in. She stood in the hallway a long moment, staring at the lock. Then at me. Then down at the floor. That was the moment it hit her. Not suspicion. Not guilt. Irrelevance. I had become unreachable, not out of spite, but out of design. She was trying to hold on to something that had already slipped through her fingers. The stage was empty now, and she was the only one still performing. She waited until a Sunday night to finally say the words. I had just come home from a long drive, no explanation, no questions. I walked in, dropped my keys, and went to the kitchen. She followed, hovering behind me like a shadow. Her voice was too calm to be casual, too rehearsed to be honest. I think we need to talk. I didn't respond immediately. I poured a glass of water, took a sip, and looked out the window like I hadn't heard her. Silence stretched. Eventually, I turned to face her. She was standing there like she used to, shoulders back, lips tight, waiting for something she no longer controlled. She asked if I was still angry, if I was punishing her. I said nothing. She said things had gotten cold between us, that she missed how it used to be, that maybe she'd made mistakes, but she wanted to fix it. Her words stumbled in places, unsure of which version of me she was speaking to, the man she once knew, or the man I had become. But I wasn't either of them anymore. I let her talk. I watched the desperation wrap itself around each sentence. She tried to cry, but even that felt manufactured. Not grief, just fear. Fear of being replaced, forgotten, irrelevant. She asked if we could start over. I told her there's no reset button on respect. That line hit her harder than anything I'd said before. Her expression cracked for the first time, real pain, not performance. Because now, it wasn't about infidelity. It wasn't about Aiden, or lies, or passwords, or red dresses. It was about her realizing I no longer saw her as necessary. She reached for my hand across the counter. I didn't move. I didn't pull away. But I didn't meet her halfway either. That pause, just a second too long, shattered the illusion she'd been trying to maintain. She knew then this wasn't distance. It was departure. She wasn't speaking to the same man anymore. I had outgrown the version of myself that tolerated betrayal dressed as confusion. She said she didn't want to lose me. I didn't reply, because I wasn't lost. I had just stopped being found where I wasn't respected. A house doesn't fall in one blow. It creaks. It groans. The foundation shifts. You don't always notice the damage until the walls no longer hold. That's what happened next. Her collapse wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, drawn out, humiliating in its slow inevitability. She started forgetting things. Simple things. Appointments. Calls. Groceries. She burned dinner 2 nights in a row. Not because she was distracted by love, but because she had lost control of the image she'd worked so hard to protect. And without that mask, she was just ordinary. Flawed. Unprepared for consequences. I watched her unravel without a single raised voice. Her social world had gone dim. Fewer likes. Fewer texts. No invites. People didn't confront her. They just disappeared, one by one. A soft exile. She became the person they didn't want to be seen agreeing with. No scandal, just discomfort. And discomfort spreads like a virus. Even Aiden, her secret prize, faded. His name stopped appearing on her screen. She stopped trying to hide it. She left her phone face down now, like it might reveal too much even when silent. I knew they weren't speaking anymore. She had gambled everything on his attention. And he folded. That night, she asked if I was happy. Not in a curious way. In a defeated one. I told her happiness wasn't the point anymore. Peace was. And I had it. That line made her flinch. I could see the flicker of realization in her eyes, that I hadn't been waiting for her to change. I had already changed without her. That was the cruelest part. Not revenge. Not punishment. Irrelevance. She was still in the house, but the house no longer included her. I came home later now. Slept better. Laughed more at work. I didn't fake a life to prove I was okay. I was okay. She felt it. That's what broke her. Not the silence, but what the silence had created. She finally saw it. She wasn't choosing between 2 men anymore. She had already been unchosen. Long ago. Quietly. Permanently. It ended the same way it started, with quiet. There was no final argument. No screaming match in the driveway. No bags thrown down a staircase. Just one morning, I got up before sunrise like I always did, made black coffee, and didn't pour her a cup. I walked past the photos still on the wall, through a house that no longer held weight, and into a version of my life she could no longer follow. The night before, I had signed the papers. The lawyer would file them that morning. I didn't leave them on the counter. I didn't give her a speech. She would get the notification by email, with everything already in motion. I owed her no explanation. I wasn't severing ties out of rage. I was reclaiming my life. In the weeks leading up, I had moved the last of my personal things into storage. Not the obvious stuff, just the essentials. Passport, birth certificate, family keepsakes. The rest could stay. None of it had meaning anymore. I changed my number, canceled the joint subscriptions, left her name on nothing. No calls to friends, no dramatic post, just absence. When she woke up and realized the other side of the bed was cold, she didn't panic. At first, she thought maybe I went to the gym early. Maybe I took a drive. But by noon, she called. Then again, and again. She left a voicemail. You don't just walk out like that. But I did. Because when someone tells you you're convenient, not valuable, not meaningful, there's no negotiation after that. There's only distance. Final, unbridgeable distance. A week later, she emailed me. No anger, just confusion. A paragraph trying to pull meaning from silence. Trying to provoke a response. I didn't write back. I had nothing left to explain. My absence was not a threat. It was a conclusion. And in that final moment, as I stood in the doorway of my new apartment, the city humming below, a thought crossed my mind, not bitter, not triumphant, just still. I didn't disappear. I just stopped showing up where I wasn't respected. And with that, I closed the door. Quietly. Completely. Forever. What would you have done in my place? If the story hit you, leave a like. And don't forget to subscribe. It only gets stronger from here.